be the most important video I'll ever make. It's about an institution that we all hold dearly in our hearts and is still relevant in the modern day. And that is the royal family. Wait, we still have a monarchy? I'm kidding, I knew that. I knew that we had and still have a monarchy. I can't help but be aware that they exist because the British media won't shut up about them. Even the most mundane details, like what jewellery they wear or whether they had a home birth or not. It's bizarre, to say the least. I'm not going to do the usual thing of saying, why does anyone care about the royals? I do care. I care a lot, actually. I care that in 2021 we still have a monarchy. I care that they cost the UK taxpayer upwards of £60 million a year, whilst the number of children living in temporary accommodation has gone up 75% since the Tories took power in 2010. And if you are tempted to retort, but the royals make us more in tourism than we spend on them, that's actually not true. And even if it was true, we could still make our money through tourism without them. If we abolished the monarchy, we'd still have Buckingham Palace and those men in the big fuzzy hats, and probably we'd still have their YouTube channel. That being said, this video isn't going to be a case for why we should abolish the monarchy. Other creators have already made this case, such as Sean and PhilosophyTube. But before we continue, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Tara Mooknee, and this is the only channel on YouTube where all videos are written and produced by a cow. She couldn't be in the video today because she's actually gone out to get some sushi, but if you like and subscribe, she might appear in the next one. So, in answer to the question, why is the British tabloid media so obsessed with the royal family? The simple answer is that it's just celebrity culture. Today it's the tabloids, but all the way back to the times where there was a town crier, people were gossiping about the royals. Though the fascination with the royals in this day and age is more strange because they are less important. They're mere cultural icons at this point. When we follow and obsess over celebrities, it's often because they're good looking, talented, or charismatic, whereas the royals are born into their position, so they don't need to be any of those things. Perhaps there's some kind of wealth porn and escapism. They're so far removed from us that we know we'll never be them. But also they're fixed, which I guess creates some sort of British identity. According to Dr. Donna Rockwell, a clinical psychologist who specialises in celebrity and fame, the royal family's strict adherence to procedure is a source of comfort for people. It's comforting to see a structure where that structure seems to create a semblance of order. So in the same way, I think that when an adult is feeling a sense of inner chaos, it's comforting, even neurologically speaking, to be able to observe something of structure. We see structure and we feel comforted. So it's actually a neurological response of relaxation that occurs in us in seeing the Queen. So don't worry if you've got daddy or mummy issues. The Queen will be your daddy. Or mummy. Wouldn't mind Harry being my daddy. I'm sorry, I won't. I don't even find him that hot. He's just the best of the lot, let's be honest. They've had to outsource to get some sex appeal in the family. Centuries of incest hasn't helped the situation. But wait, Tara, the Queen and Prince Philip weren't even first cousins. They were third cousins. Yuck. As for why the media reports on them so much, it makes them a lot of money. 1.9 billion people worldwide watched Harry and Meghan's wedding, 29 million in the US alone. And it wasn't just because there was an American bride. There were approximately 22.8 million US viewers for William and Catherine's wedding. There's the demand, so it's no wonder that the media feeds this demand. The constant constant media exposure also creates a feedback loop. Because people are interested in them, the media keeps covering them. And because they're constantly in the media, people become interested in them. It's like the chicken and the egg. The royals the chicken or the egg? I don't know. What I do know is that the golden egg is the royal rota. I guess I should explain what that is now. The royal rota is the press pool that covers the British royal family. So it's a select group of media representatives that are invited to attend and report on royal events. This pool system decreases the number of media representatives that would otherwise attend, which helps to alleviate space and security concerns. As of January 2020, core members of the print media include the Daily Express, the Daily Mail, the Daily Mirror, the Evening Standard, the Telegraph, the Times, and the Sun. And this has been a mutually beneficial relationship. It gives the palace an indirect but fast-spreading way to interact with the public. And it gives stories to the press. The thing is, times are changing. I don't know if you heard, but print media isn't doing so well. So now digital publishing is the main focus. Outlets prioritise quantity over quality. It's about getting primary results on search engines. Now, what if the royals no longer want to give you that inside scoop? What if they'd rather use their own social media channels? Or be more selective about who they speak to in the press? If you're part of the royal rota, that might cheese you off. That might threaten your revenue. So you might then write bad stuff to keep getting clicks. You see what I'm getting at, right? Harry and Meghan left the royal rota and they didn't like it. But more on that later. I just want to look at a wee example of the press crafting a narrative for the royals. And in order to do that, I need to make a diversion. On the evening of 3rd of March 2021, Sarah Everard, a 33-year-old marketing executive, disappeared in South London when walking home from a friend's house. On the 9th of March, a Metropolitan Police officer was arrested on suspicion of Sarah's kidnapping and later on suspicion of her murder. The man accused of her murder had previously been accused of indecent exposure, and there's conversations about whether the police handled these accusations with due diligence. Because she had walked through Clapham Common the night she died, the bandstand on the Common became a place of remembrance and mourning for Sarah. The Common amassed huge crowds and the bandstand became a hotspot for a couple of weeks after the event. Because of COVID regulations at the time and because it was so crowded, it was recommended that mourners should wear masks. I promise this will be relevant. A vigil for Sarah took place on Clapham Common on 13th of March. Hundreds of people attended to pay their respects. By 6 p.m, several hundred had congregated around the bandstand for speeches and mourning. And the police's response, well, it was bad. They trampled over flowers left by mourners and were heavy-handed with the mourners at the vigil. 4 people were arrested for public order offences and for breaching the Coronavirus Act 2020. For anyone to congregate around the bandstand during these days without a mask would be irresponsible because social distancing was not happening due to the sheer numbers of people. Most people did, in fairness, but there was someone who didn't. And that was Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge. She appeared to show her respects and didn't wear a mask, which was kind of weird because most people were, and I can say that as someone who was there. I wonder why she didn't. Kate's tribute as she recalls how it felt to walk in London at night. Kate, I know what it's like to be a woman out at night. Kate joins the vigil for Sarah. For Sarah. Kate joins thousands paying tribute, remembering what it felt like to walk around London at night. I'm gonna try to keep my cool. So, this is appalling reporting. I want to address this in case someone brings this up. I understand, to an extent, why the Vigil police incident hadn't yet made the front page. Because these are first editions for the Sunday paper, and that all happened on Saturday night. And you can see the change in the case of the Sunday Telegraph. That being said, this is still a mockery of journalism. Bear in mind, this was only a few days after the Meghan and Harry interview with Oprah, so the estate was dealing with accusations of racism and other sorts of misconduct. So it's no surprise that they'd try and get some good publicity. So why not use a murder victim to do so? Now, before you say that I'm being too hard on Catherine, I know that she has every right to attend and maybe she just wanted to pay her respects. But notice how she isn't wearing a mask and the other people in the photo are. I find it hard to believe that the royal estate wouldn't know that Catherine's appearance would get press coverage if she was spotted. This was deliberate. This is flagrant propaganda. The reporting was a joke. Duchess mingles discreetly. She was one of the only people without a mask so she could be easily recognised and photographed. She was praised for breaching lockdown and using a woman's murder for a PR stunt. Also, the fact that they had a statement from her implies that she sent the statement to them. They knew her image would make the front page. Just a few hours later, people in masks were being arrested. But Catherine sent a personal letter to Everard's family to express her sadness and sympathy. Did I say abolish the monarchy already? I'll get into this more later, but I find it so funny how members of the tabloid media claim that Harry and Meghan left the royal rota because they only wanted good press. Like a totalitarian state, they're suppressing our free speech by not talking to you anymore. And it's just so dishonest. To say your objective is a joke when you roll out royalist propaganda. And further demonstration that you're not objective is how you report on when two different people are doing the exact same thing, and yes, I'm referring to Kate and Meghan. Gone gaga! Meghan Markle's constant bump holding is just for a photo op, and she should take her baby bump Barbie act down a notch, critic slams. Editor Joe Elvin said that Meghan holding her bump seems contrived. There she glows. Pregnant Kate cradles her burgeoning baby bump as she waves to crowds at Mental Health Forum. Not long to go! Pregnant Kate tenderly cradles her baby bump while wrapping up her royal duties ahead of maternity leave. And William confirms she's due any minute now. Why can't Meghan Markle keep her hands off her bump? Expert tackles the question that has got the nation talking. Is it pride, vanity, acting, or a new age bonding technique? Speaking of baby bumps and infants, let's talk about the royal children for a bit.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
This is what prompted me to make this video. New picture of Princess Charlotte released to mark her 6th birthday. This is news? Why would anyone want to see photos of a random 6-year-old they've never met? It's weird, right? Prince William shares sweet details about Princess Charlotte's 6th birthday party. She had a lovely day. And there's been lots of discussion on YouTube about the ethics of family channels. Is it fair to rely on your children for income? Can children consent to having their faces shared with the world? Are you putting children in danger by sharing their image? And my answers to those questions are no, no, and yes. So let's take into account those issues and apply them to the royal children. They don't get any choice in this. They can't consent to this. And I understand that for all famous people, people are interested in their private lives. They're curious about what their partners, siblings, and kids are like. But with the royal children, the media and the British public, royalists, feel entitled to see the royal children. Royalists are perfectly happy to pay taxes to the royal estate, their homes, holidays, whatever. They don't take issue with that.
I personally think the monarchy are great. I have no problem with paying for the monarchy. I have a problem when you get into the weeds of double standards and wanting cake and eat it about this.
I just think it's a baby.
Until they don't get insight into their private lives.
You cannot hide away a baby that is funded by the taxpayer.
I mean, I think that they are giving a certain amount of access. They do release photographs.
Yeah, they released a picture of Archie's foot.
Harry and Meghan received a lot of flack for not wanting to take photos hours after Meghan was in labour, sharing christening photos and their child's godparents.
Yeah, no, there is an entitlement, actually.
We're entitled to know every single...
Because it's a royal baby!
And the common argument used was, we pay for them! Which is bizarre to me, because why are you okay with paying for them? Is it really worth it just to see a baby? You know, if you want to look at photos of babies, there's Google, there's baby catalogues. No disrespect to the royal kids, but there's nothing special about these babies. They're just born into a particular bloodline. That's it. And regardless of whether we pay for these people or not, we are not entitled to see people's children. It's not fair to impose royal duties on them. If the parents so wish, I think they're entitled to keep the children completely out of the public limelight until they are of an age that they can consent. Leave the adults to fulfill the royal duties that you pay for. You shouldn't be able to pay to see children. It's fucking weird. And whilst I acknowledge that these children are born into immense wealth and privilege and will never have to earn any of the opportunities they get, I feel for them. Fame and public inquiry, whether it's positive or not, isn't healthy for a child. They should be allowed to have a normal childhood and privacy.
As they waited to order, a group of around 20 photographers and TV crews filmed from nearby. The princess was clearly becoming agitated by the media attention and walked over to talk to them, covering the lens of a freelance cameraman as she did so.
As a parent, could I ask you to respect my children's space? Because I brought children out here for a holiday, and we'd really appreciate the space.
Fun fact, did you know that we have Princess Diana to thank for the phrase revenge dress? Not just her, you know, her designer and the people who wrote about it after. She wore the iconic look at a Vanity Fair dinner just days after her bombshell interview where she confirmed Charles's infidelity. So yeah, it was a big deal. However, I'm no fashion expert, so if you want an in-depth look into Diana's fashion legacy, check out Mina Lay's video. Before we dive in, I'll just give you a Cliff Notes version of Diana and Charles's relationship. And yes, I do see the irony in that, considering I'll be heavily critiquing the media's probing into their relationship. But you need the context, otherwise you'll get lost very quickly because shit gets messy.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Prince Charles was born in 1948. Princess Diana was born in 1961. So Charles was 13 years older than Diana. In the early 1970s, Charles and Camilla dated. Things ended when Charles was deployed in the Royal Navy in 1972. During that time, Camilla got engaged to an Army cavalry officer, Andrew Parker Bowes, and they married in 1973. The couple remained good friends with Charles, and he even became the godfather of their first son. Jump to the late 1970s. Charles, at 29, dated Diana's older sister, Sara Spencer, in 1977. And it was through Sara, Charles met Diana at a shooting party, who was 16 at the time. In 1981, Charles told The Telegraph, "I remember thinking what a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old she was. I mean, great fun and bouncy and full of life and everything." Maybe she was full of life because she was underage, Charles. They didn't meet again until 1980, where they were guests at a country weekend. After some courting, the couple got engaged in February 1981, and apparently they had only met in person 13 times prior to this. Diana was 19, Charles was 32. Ew. The press treated their relationship like a soap opera. The portrayal of their relationship started with adoration and rose-tinted goggles, but as soon as cracks appeared, the tabloids pounced like seagulls to chips. Their wedding marked a turning point in how royals dominated the media. Their wedding was called the Wedding of the Century, and approximately 750 million people watched. The BBC marked it as a high point in the popularity of royals in the 1980s, and it was argued that it was due to Diana's growing celebrity status. She had the pizzazz that the bloodborne royals just didn't have. And I want to take a moment to explore why she'd get into this. Why would someone choose to marry into this family knowing that they'll never be awarded privacy again? Well, firstly, it was Diana in particular who the media clung on to more than they ever had before with a royal. Though the sad thing is she knew what she was getting into. I felt like a lamb to the slaughter, and I knew it. I don't think I was happy. I never tried to call it off, in the sense of really doing that, but I think it was the worst day of my life. Nevertheless, I don't think it's fair or productive to blame people for marrying into the royal family. I find it frustrating when people retort, well, you chose this. Yes, but does that choice warrant constant media scrutiny and gross invasions of privacy? Also, I would argue that Diana probably didn't have that much choice in the matter. Her father was a nobleman, and her mum bought her a flat when she was 18, so I'm not denying she was immensely privileged. That being said, she wasn't super academic, and her parents called her the thick one. Before getting engaged, she worked low-paid jobs like dance instructing, as a preschool assistant, did some cleaning work for friends, then nannied and worked in a nursery. Charles was apparently pressured by his father to propose to Diana, who, bear in mind, was 19 at the time. He was her first boyfriend. The emotional toll of her fame shouldn't be pinned on her choice to marry into the royal family. It should be on the royal estate and the media for mistreating her. It will come as no surprise to you that to this day, The Sun feels no shame and came up with this handy article in 2019. The Printed of Wales. Princess Diana remembered in The Sun's historic front pages 22 years on from her death. And then they take us on a trip down memory lane of some horrific headlines they wrote about her, such as, "Darling Di, you're lovely, but promise us you won't lose 1 more pound." At no point during this retrospective does the writer go, maybe this wasn't it. Maybe this wasn't our best reporting moment. Even after acknowledging that it was later revealed that she had an eating disorder. But nah, let's brush over it instead as a fun little memory. Though I did learn that it was Charles and Di who started the whole "let's show our baby to the press as we're coming out of hospital" tradition. Di takes her baby home. As you saw in my earlier chapter, this has been set as a precedent, but it hasn't always been the case. From Kiss to this. This is a classic example of the press following the couple's every step towards their marriage breakdown and arguably exacerbating it. Kiss miss. Charles' attempted smacker ends up behind Di's ear. Newsworthy stuff. Jumping ahead to them post-separation, the tabloids were keen to make headlines out of all the sordid details of their separation. And if this wasn't weird and evasive enough for you, let's look at the Sun's divorce special. No, I'm not joking. Divorce special, pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 26 and 27. So it isn't hard to gauge how this would take a toll on someone. And it's worth noting that there was positive press on Diana, and other royals were mistreated. Bye-bye, big ears. Charles, heir to the throne. Royal journalists like to say, oh, people are rewriting history. We said some nice stuff about Diana, and A, the good doesn't erase all the really bad stuff you wrote. And B, even if all the press was glowing, it was the invasive nature of it that created so much pressure on her. She was the main focus. And I will address a theory that is, Diana was in cahoots with the press. She allegedly manipulated the press and collaborated with them regularly. Who are the proponents of this theory? Journalists. Tina Brown, former Vanity Fair editor and author of the controversial 2007 book Diana Chronicles, claimed that Diana would often tip off the press to her whereabouts and nurtured close relationships with some members of the media. Brown said that Diana did want some privacy, but at the same time she couldn't resist giving them the images they wanted, and one of the pictures she had allegedly tipped them off about was that she was on a boat with Dodie and said, "Take this picture of me on the boat." Another example people use is from 1993, when Diana was photographed working out at London gym. The pictures made their way on the front pages of the tabloids, and the gym owner who took them was unrepentant. What was Princess Diana doing there in the first place if she didn't want to be seen? How many women do you know who work out in full makeup? How many do you know who supposedly work out hard and then don't sweat? Or she knew that it was inevitable, and if she didn't look good, that'd be the headline. Also, she ended up suing over these images. She became the most photographed person in the world, and paparazzi offered up to $500K for photos of her. Her nickname in the industry was the Princess of Sales, like Princess of Wales, but sales. One of her most famous creepers, Jason Fraser, made £1 million from selling photos of Diana with Dodie Fayed, who was her boyfriend who died in the tunnel with her. We will get to the car crash, but first I will address the whole BBC Martin Bashir incident. I don't want to talk about this, but I feel like if I don't, it would be like skipping a pivotal chapter in a book. I'll give you the Cliff Notes or Spark Notes, depending on your preference version. Martin Bashir did an interview for BBC Panorama in late 1995, and it was the first time a serving royal spoke very plainly about their life. In this interview, Diana revealed she had an affair. Prince Charles had an affair. She said she had bulimia and had self-harmed, just to name a couple of things.
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
That's not everything. An independent inquiry has found that Martin Bashir used deception to secure the interview, like getting a graphic designer to forge bank statements, which would have played on her fears she had expressed of being watched and people around her spreading private things about her. The BBC apologised, but Martin Bashir maintained that the fake documents had no bearing on Diana's decision to do the interview. Regardless, that interview was the catalyst for Diana's relationship with the media turning from toxic to radioactive, arguably leading to her death. And when I say that, I don't mean that in the conspiracy theorist way. The press were trying to kill her. The Queen ordered the mafia to do a hit. No. She died because her driver was intoxicated and was speeding, and she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Also, she wasn't wearing a seatbelt because she was ducking from the paparazzi who were following her car on motorbikes, and her driver was speeding to get away from the paparazzi. So when people say the press killed her, that's what they mean. It's bad. It's sad. Interestingly, a Gallup poll conducted in 1997 found that 43% of the UK public held photographers extremely responsible for the fatal crash. And the public mood turned against the media. The Sun and the Mirror recorded their lowest sales figures since 1962. 8 days after Diana's death, The Daily Mail pledged to ban paparazzi images from its pages, which obviously they didn't end up doing. So how did the press respond? Did they take some responsibility and some time to self-reflect in order to learn from their mistakes? For months after Diana's death, I wouldn't mention that I worked for a magazine that published paparazzi pictures because we were the lowest of the low. And on the one hand, things have changed in that the paparazzi can't capture the royals like they used to. There's now the Protection from Harassment Act, and the royal family is clamping down on publications that publish private images. Like when a French magazine published topless photos of Kate Middleton. That being said, Prince Harry has found the press to be invasive, and even if they aren't being followed by the paparazzi, they are still experiencing the same level of scrutiny from the media. And as I mentioned earlier, this digital age demands quantity over quality, so if anything, they're being written about more than ever. And due to that need for quantity, the tabloid media scrutinize their every move, fashion choice, even dietary choice. Even if it's positive coverage, it's still weird and invasive. Why does anyone care if a 7-year-old likes spicy food? Unfortunately, it gets darker than that, so let's grab a drink. Well, this is just disappointing, but not surprising. Did the media learn from Diana? Spoiler, no. I'm mainly going to focus on the family dynamics of Meghan Markle's media struggle, but before I do, I want to address some important points. I can't believe this is a controversial statement. The British media has been racist to Meghan Markle.
If there is issue from her alleged union with Prince Harry, the Windsors will thicken her watery, thin blue blood and Spencer pale skin and ginger hair with some rich and exotic DNA. Miss Markle's mother is a dreadlocked African-American lady from the wrong side of the tracks who lives in LA, and even the Sara spinster has to admit that the 35-year-old actress is extremely easy on the eye.
Now, if you're a regular viewer or you watch a lot of progressive content on YouTube, I probably don't need to explain to you how that is the case. And if you're someone who adamantly stands by the stance that Meghan has received zero racism at the hands of the British media, then I'm not going to convince you otherwise. So just leave your dislike and go. Journalists and royalists who insist that the British media has never even uttered a microaggression to Meghan cannot be convinced otherwise. And there's two main reasons for this. The first being that being offended by accusations of racism more than actual racism is a staple of British culture, especially Tories.
Conservative narrative, which is often racist, which is often discriminatory, which is often...
sorry, I just find it extremely offensive that you call conservative narrative racist. I just think that's rude and offensive, frankly.
Some of them are racist narratives.
Who are you talking? Who what?
Your Prime Minister?
That is outrageous.
Has your Prime Minister never been
honestly,
racist?
I think that is outrageous
Has your
and
Prime
wrong,
Minister never been
and that you
racist?
should not. It undermines politics and political discourse in general. If you're coming on here and calling the Prime Minister racist, no, he has not.
Has he never said anything
No,
racist?
honestly, I just think that is
calling
awful.
Muslim women letterboxes.
His choice of words is unfortunate.
Then you're not going to win. But I honestly, I think.
Watermelon smiles.
Well, Dawn, can I put?
The minister gave the usual Tory platitudes. Yes, she condemned the horrific racism our England stars have faced, but what was she think about the Prime Minister when he was doing, when he was describing black people as pickaninnies with watermelon smiles, when he used newspaper columns to mock Muslim women as letterboxes and bank robbers, when he refused to condemn the booing of England players taking the knee, and when his Home Secretary derided the anti-racist message as gesture politics? Isn't it the case, Mr. Speaker, like England star Tyrone Mings has said, that the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister were stoking the fire of racism, giving the green light to racism, and only now, when the consequences are clear, are they feigning outrage?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I had hoped that we were going to be able to conduct this debate in a measured and collective way. I don't genuinely think the Honourable Lady is accusing either the Prime Minister of this country or indeed the Home Secretary of racism. That would be a truly extraordinary allegation to make. But I hope at some point we will be able to work together to tackle racism. That is what we all want to do. That is what the work of this government is directed towards. And I hope that we're able to just lower the tone a little bit.
You mean like this, bestie?
To talk about morals and morality is a disgrace!
This man has done more to divide this nation. I still refer to him as Dodgy Dave.
This Parliament is a disgrace.
He should be absolutely ashamed of himself.
Come on, come on.
Second, a lot of the British media class are closely interconnected, so there's this sense of if you come after the media, you're coming after me. You know the whole problem with transphobia in the British media and how it seems like everyone in the British media is a TERF. That's because they are, and they're mates or married to each other. They're so reluctant to even entertain this issue that they will do such mental gymnastics to excuse racism.
Can you give me one example of a headline in the British press that you thought was racist?
Straight Out of Compton, which is clearly trying to make an allusion to her being a gangster and very specifically a black gangster.
No, it wasn't. Did you read the whole article?
Comparing her to a jihadist.
Like when DJ Danny Baker tweeted a chimp when Archie was born. Yes, he was fired, but the way certain media people were talking about it was...
Compared her son to a chimpanzee. You're lucky she even told you about
We've got a press representative.
Well, when I say press,
hang on, Camilla, you have
the Danny Baker tweet, I think we can all agree, was completely inappropriate, and he was rightly reprimanded.
It was racist.
The straight
baby compared to a baby chimp, and when people like me said that was a racist joke, then people like you said that wasn't racist.
Danny Baker was a BBC broadcaster. Who said, and I have no reason to disbelieve him, he had no idea about the background to Meghan Markle.
That she had African heritage.
Danny Baker is not remotely racist, as anyone who knows him knows, right?
Don't insult my intelligence, Derek.
I also just love this clip of a royalist journalist being confronted on the fact that she reported that Meghan had made Kate cry, and it has turned out to be the other way round, or at least according to Meghan.
I said Kate was left in tears.
Did they both end up in tears? Did Meghan not know that Kate was in tears? She's claiming that Kate had given her an apology, bunch of flowers and a card. Is Meghan in a position to comment on whether the Duchess was upset by the incident? I mean,
well,
in the absence of speaking to...
Those are the only two women that really matter in this story because they were there.
Well, it might be true.
People have short memories. I mean, when Kate first came on the scene, people were making extraordinary claims about her mother being nicknamed Doors to Manual and how she was Waity Katie and a doormat.
Yeah, sorry, but no, calling Kate a pushover is not the same as racism. But yeah, there are people who talk about Meghan's experience as a woman of colour in the palace much better than I ever could.
Watch this video, it's swell.
Now, the title of this chapter is Family Feud. And this video is about how weird the media's obsession with the royal family is, in case you forgot. And one of the weirdest things I find is how the media broadcasts and meddles in private family affairs. Specifically with Meghan Markle's father and her half-sister. I don't know if Thomas Markle knows what he's doing, but oh boy, is he giving the media exactly what they want. Oh, he's a gift to them.
When they say that I'm marrying and taking advantage of the press, well, basically what I do, because I haven't heard from them, is I'll do a story for the press. If I don't hear from them in 30 days, then I'll do another story for the press. And I've yet to hear from them.
It's actually vile that the media is propping up a guy to publicly humiliate and badger his daughter. I don't know what their relationship is actually like because it's none of my business. But he's giving me that vibe of the parent that expects praise for doing the bare minimum. By the way, this isn't a call out to my parents. They're great, they're fab, we stan. But you know those parents that will say to their kids, I raised you, I fed you. And it's like, yeah, that's the bare minimum. And her sister is a grifter. I'm sorry. But it's true. The media, please stop giving this woman attention.
And your sister, but we're very confused here in terms of the public because, you know, we see in terms of a public life, which your sister's saying she's going to step back from, but this week we saw her appearing in Vancouver with at a woman's refuge. We see a very caring, compassionate side to her. So is she that person or is she someone else?
In my opinion, she is someone else. And, you know, when I saw that, it felt like a PR stunt, contrived British accent.
It's so messed up. Even the media outlets who challenge her on her grift, just stop. This stuff bears no relevance to Meghan's status as a royal, and it's exploitative and gross. As a side note, if someone doesn't respond to you through private channels, that means they either can't or don't want to talk to you. Don't make things public to coerce them into speaking to you. And it's up to the family members to learn this because the media never will. They have no shame. Oh god, I've got to talk about Piss Morgan now. Even more than Samantha Markle, much more actually. This guy feeds off attention. His whole career is just being an abrasive pest. He calls himself a journalist, which I guess is technically true. Well, he was editor of the News of the World until he broke the editor's code of conduct when he published photographs of a model leaving an addictive disorders clinic. So, stand-up guy. So, Piss is obsessed with Meghan Markle.
And she's behaving like a Hollywood actress, which is what actually she is.
The thing is that you criticise her for whatever she does.
And I'm not a massive fan, as people may know. Meghan genuinely cradled her bum in a weirder way than Kate.
That's
a fact.
What has Meghan Markle done that is so heinous, apart from not having a drink with you? Listen, I get rejection is hard.
Oh, I know. We did meet. I believe when people show you who they are, believe them, including people like me who were just peripheral friends that we thought we were friends. And this person's now doing what she did to her family and friends to the royal family. She split up those boys for all this stuff that came out about her background, which I found, given what she did to me, unnervingly similar. I thought we were quite good friends and then literally never heard from her again from the moment she met Harry. You know, Thomas, when I met Meghan in London for a nice drink and we got on very well and I liked her very much.
This fucking guy. May I just take a moment to shout out Lakia Shabali for this article on Medium. A statistical breakdown of Piss Morgan's obsession with Meghan Markle. God save the Queen? No, God save Lakia Shabali. This is God's work. I could not put myself through this. Allow me to summarise the history of their relationship. Piss followed her on Twitter. She messaged him, thanking him, and they struck up a conversation. They met once for drinks at a London pub, during which time he bought her 3 dirty martinis. Afterwards, she met the love of her life, Prince Harry, and they lived happily ever after. Not even close, but roll with it. And Piss has made it his mission to trash her publicly ever since, for ghosting him and not inviting him to her wedding. If Meghan Markle farts too loudly in an enclosed area, trust me, Piss will let us know. So when Piss claims that Meghan ghosted him, I think what actually happened is that they met once and she got on with her life. Make sure to go read this article so it gets the clicks it deserves, but I'll just show you some of her findings. Piss Morgan mentioned Meghan Markle 834 times between November 27th, 2017 and May 20th, 2021. This figure includes 741 mentions across Twitter, 52 segments on Good Morning Britain and 41 Daily Mail columns. She made a graph and everything, and it all came to a head on 9th of March 2021. 1981, after Meghan and Harry did an interview for Oprah. They revealed lots of things, like how, allegedly, Meghan went to the palace about her mental health and they didn't help her, and that a senior royal asked if Harry was worried about what skin colour their baby would be. So, some big accusations. And, of course, Piss had some bad takes, and he let his emotions get the better of him.
But Meghan has, within this interview, said it got so bad that she was suicidal.
I'm sorry, I don't believe a word she says, Meghan Markle.
Well, that's a
I wouldn't believe it if she read me a weather report. And the fact that she's fired up this onslaught against our royal family, I think is contemptible.
It goes without saying that having one of the most watched TV hosts in the UK questioning someone's testimonial about their suicidal thoughts is dangerous and can really harm people who are going through the same thing. And sadly, it's not surprising. I mean, he has a history of not taking mental health or mental illness seriously. And no, he's not a medical professional.
And I understand that you don't like Meghan Markle. You've made it so clear a number of times on this programme. A number of times. And I understand that you've got a personal relationship with Meghan Markle, or had one, and she cut you off. She's entitled to cut you off if she wants to. Has she said anything about you since she cut you off? I don't think she has, but yet you continue to trash her.
OK, I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, no. Sorry.
Do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can trash me, maybe, not mine.
No.
See you later.
I'm being...
Sorry, can't do
this.
This
is absolutely diabolical behaviour.
Though after ITV received 41,000 complaints through Ofcom about Piss's comments, they made this statement. Following discussions with ITV, Piers Morgan has decided now is the time to leave Good Morning Britain. ITV has accepted this decision and has nothing further to add. And the next morning he came out with this banger of a tweet. On Monday, I said I didn't believe Meghan Markle in her Oprah interview. I've had time to reflect on this opinion, and I still don't. If you did, okay. Freedom of speech is a hill I'm happy to die on. Thanks for all the love and hate. I'm off to spend some more time with my opinions. Then there's a picture of Churchill with a quote. Some people's idea of free speech is that they are free to say what they like, but if anyone says anything back, that is an outrage. Oh God, the irony is delicious, isn't it?
Has she said anything about you since she cut you off? I don't think she has, but yet you continue to trash her.
OK, I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, no. Sorry.
Do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can trash me, maybe, not mine.
No.
See you later.
He really has no self-awareness, does he? My question is, why did Good Morning Britain let it get to this point? He was clearly obsessed with Meghan Markle, and he was incapable of covering any issue to do with her without getting his panties in a twist. He couldn't be level-headed about her. Well, it's because ratings. And now he's gone, ratings are plummeting. Oh well. Oh, I'm so glad to be done talking about that gammon. If I have to talk about one more pink-faced creep... Oh, fuck! Just a warning for you.
Am I right in thinking you threw a birthday party for Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, at Sandringham?
No, it was a shooting weekend.
A shooting weekend?
Just a straightforward shooting weekend. And it would be, to some extent, a stretch to say that as it were, we were close friends. I mean, we were friends because of other people.
Just for the record, you've been on his private plane?
Yes.
You've been to stay on his private island?
Yes.
You've stayed at his home in Palm Beach?
Yes.
You visited Ghislaine Maxwell's house in Belgravia in London?
Yes.
In 2006, in May, an arrest warrant was issued for Epstein for sexual assault of a minor.
Yes.
In July, in 2008, he was convicted of soliciting and procuring a minor for prostitution. He was jailed. This was your friend. He was released in July. Within months, by December of 2010, you went to stay with him at his New York mansion. Why? Why were you staying with a convicted sex offender?
Right. Now, I went there with the sole purpose of saying to him that because he had been convicted, it was inappropriate for us to be seen together. I felt that doing it over the telephone was the chicken's way of doing it.
I'm just trying to work this out, because you said you went to break up the relationship, and yet you stayed at that New York mansion several days. I'm wondering how long...
But I was doing a number of other things while I was there. It was a convenient place to stay.
She described dancing with you, and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly...
There's a slight problem with the sweating, because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time. It was almost impossible for me to sweat.
This should have been a slam dunk for the press. A prince might be a nonce? There must have been articles coming out of the Sun's wazoo. Nope, nope, nope. Don't get me wrong, they did cover him whilst still going on about Meghan and Harry. And you can talk about two issues at once, I'm not saying you can't, but the volume of articles about Andrew doesn't reach the volume of articles about Meghan. Remember that legendary article I mentioned? Well, she also compared Piers Morgan's coverage of Meghan Markle to his coverage of Prince Andrew. Since this incident, Piers has written 4 columns about Andrew, compared to the 21 he wrote about Meghan Markle during the same period. He wrote about Meghan 81% more since November 2019. Now listen, I understand that no one enjoys talking about of a minor and trafficking. It's much easier to just write a series of articles about avocados than what I just mentioned. The problem is, if you cover something less, significantly less, than something else, it implies that one issue is of greater importance than the other. As well as previous reasons I mentioned, I think it's also because the media has a soft spot for the Queen. Andrew is of course the Queen's son, and the palace even made a statement about his situation. He hasn't cooperated with the FBI, and the palace haven't condemned this, implying that the Queen and him still have a relationship, which, listen, I don't blame her for that. I think this is a parent's worst nightmare, and I'm not saying if your child is accused of heinous acts you should just drop them. Like I said, it's a nightmare situation. Putting that aside, it is still bizarre to me that he's allowed to do interviews as a royal. Like he did an interview after his father, Prince Philip, died, and I understand that in that situation his dad died, but it just seemed a bit strange that he was doing the interview. Because whether it's officially or not, that's still representing the royals, because he was talking about a big royal death, right? Anyways, with regards to the Queen, the British media, in particular the royal rota, almost never criticised the Queen. The worst I could find was from when Princess Diana died, which, you know, makes sense in light of everything that happened. I believe it took the Queen a couple of days to speak about Diana's death, which I think frustrated people that she wasn't quick enough. But apart from that, any mention of the Queen in the media is just endless arse-licking.
Well, I just love hearing the Queen speak like this, don't you? Just conversationally with these doctors.
I think what you've just said about the Queen is disgusting. Allow me to defend our royal family, thank you.
You tell me.
Also, she has sovereign immunity, so she can literally do no wrong, legally speaking. So where do we go from here? Hopefully from this video you've learned that the British media's obsession with the royals is even weirder than you thought. And the reason I chose to cover the British media in particular is just because our history with the royals is just so interesting to me. You know, there's the element of the fact that we pay for them through our taxes, and that, you know, media people and people in high-ranking positions are friends or family with the royals. So there's lots of close ties there, and I think that creates more conflict of interest and potentially more corruption. Whereas I think when People magazine or, I don't know, any US outlets cover the royals, it's just kind of for the fun of it. It's like, oh, the British, they have a royal family. Isn't that fun? Whereas when the British media talk about them, they're very emotionally attached. And I guess the US media is more invested now with Meghan Markle joining the family. And it is interesting to see that their coverage of her is much more positive than the British media. And I don't think this obsession is going anywhere. For as long as we have a monarchy, I even think if the monarchy were to be abolished, the media would still follow them for years after. I think it would take generations for them to fizzle out and kind of just become regular schmegular, posh, rich people who just live in the country and get on with their shooting. And do I think that the monarchy is going to be abolished anytime soon? Probably not. At least not in my lifetime. That being said, if it is going to happen, I do think it's more likely to happen when the Queen dies and Prince Charles is king. He's nowhere near as likeable, and I think that's part of the reason that people who don't really care about the royals tolerate them so much, because the Queen is pretty inoffensive.
Yes, Gaga, you look so good.
Whereas, no one really likes Charles. So I don't know, maybe they will be abolished. I definitely believe they should be, but we'll see. Now that we've talked about some bleak stuff for a bit, let's do today's subscription pet shout-out. This is a lovely doggy called Louie, and his owner said something quite apt, and now I can't unsee it. They said that he resembles a worm on a string. And oh my god, this person drew me as a cow centaur. And I'm holding Siggy. How freaking cool is that? Amazing. I'll leave their Twitter handle. Oh, and I'll show you another one just for fun. This is Emmett, and he's a... I was trying to think of a way to combine cow with cat, but they both begin with C, so... Cot? Core? Nah, it doesn't work. But he's a cow-printed cat. He also eats grass like a cow, and it looks like he's crying milk tears. He turned 2 years old last month, so happy belated birthday, Emmett. Give them both a round of applause. Wow! If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, because 1 like equals 1 prince going to jail. And if you're not yet subscribed, make sure to subscribe, because when you do, you become a little subscription. And when you become a little subscription, I will keep you underneath my pillow in the other room with the rest of my little subscriptions. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out Raycon, baby, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.